Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this video is to talk about making a complex design utilizing an image or design that's already been created and turning it into a vector for cutting with the laser engraver, as well as taking an image, ideally a photograph or design of complex nature, and engraving it into a piece of material that is then cut by that shape that we talked about previously. So to begin with here today, I have Adobe Photoshop opened up. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to make sure that my document is set to inches. And for my design, again, I'm going to work with a art piece, a design to hang up on the wall as my goal here. So I'm going to use a 12-inch by 12-inch workspace, similar to an earlier lesson, a resolution of 300 pixels per inch in an RGB color mode, and a transparent background. Choose Create. And I'm going to start by working with my photograph. So place embedded, I'm going to look for my image. And I've got a picture here of Dale Howarchuk. I'm going to resize this image to fill my 12-inch workspace. Set this in place, resize this so that this is filling my work area, accept my placement. And then I shall go to my right side of my workspace to my layers palette, right click, find the rasterized layer, and then right click again, duplicate layer so that I have a copy of this layer to work from. And I will select the top layer to be what I work with by left clicking, and I will click on the eyeball icon to make the bottom layer invisible. Should I need to go back, I have that layer of the original ready to go back to. So what I want to do is similar to what we did with the complex image, is remove the background area so that all I have is my subject, my Dale Howarchuk outline, instead of all of this background and the text. So I'm going to start with my object select tool. I'm going to click and drag a selection around Dale Howarchuk as best I can here, and I've got a pretty good tracing going on here. I can now go to my erase tool. I'm going to inverse my selection so it selects everything around Dale Howarchuk. I'm going to make my eraser tool pretty much as big as I possibly can just to get this deleted as quickly and easily as possible. And the only thing that I'm going to then have to go back and delete again is the space in between his arms and the space in between his legs. So I'll go back to my selection tool. I'm going to select around the space in his arms. That selected that really nicely. I'm just going to hit the delete key on my keyboard and do the same thing inside the pants and the socks here. See how well I get this traced. That also has worked perfectly. We're going to delete that. And there we go. There is my design ready to go for saving to take to the laser engraving design that I'm going to combine together in Photoshop. And I'm just going to zoom in just so you can see that this is actually a part of the glove here with the finger sticking out. If that looks obscure to you, you don't like that design, you are more than welcome to take Creative Control and edit this out, which is exactly what I'm going to do here, just so that glove looks a little bit cleaner, a little bit more natural for the work that I'm doing here. Now again, for me, I'm using a slightly older version of Photoshop, so I'm going to use the export feature. If you're using a newer version of Photoshop, it is the save as feature. And what we're looking to do is save this as a JPEG for the format type, and we always want the best quality option possible. We'll export this as, and I'm just going to call this Complex Design 1. Save that, and I'm going to flip over to making another new document here. Same size, create. I'm going to place the image or the complex shape design that I want to use. So I'm going to go place embedded, and I'm going to look for a Jets logo, the old school one, which is what I'd used previously in another design tutorial video. I'm going to show you how I'm going to work with this one a little bit differently than last time. So I'm going to take this design, place it, fill the page with it, right click, rasterize the layer just as before, right click, duplicate the layer just as before. Make sure my top layer is the one that I'm left clicking on to select and work with. Make sure I'm hiding the bottom layer by clicking on that eyeball. And then I'm going to use my magic wand tool to start selecting all the areas of this design that I want to be filled in as black for my laser engraving shape. So the Jets logo is going to make up the design of the shape, and the Dale Hawerchuk is going to be the image that I'm going to put into this shape. So I'm going to fill in all these parts of the Jets layer here as black. I'm going to inverse my selection and fill in the rest of this design as white. So I'm left with a dual tone image. I'm going to save this as well. And again, if I was doing this with the Save As feature with the newer version of Photoshop, I could choose Format, choose my JPEG. I don't have that option, so I'm just going to go back here to my Export feature, Export As, JPEG. Quality is great. Export this. And this design I'm going to call Complex Design 2. So I have my 2 images for my complex design ready to go. We'll head over to Illustrator, make a new file in here. Same size, we want to keep consistency here. So in Illustrator, I'm going to use the same physical size as I did in Photoshop, so a 12-inch by 12-inch workspace. We're going to hit Create. And what I'm going to start off with here is I'm going to bring in my Dale Hawerchuk by going File and Place. I'll find my Complex Design 1. There's my Dale Hawerchuk, and I've noticed that I've misspelt. I forgot the X, but that's not a big deal for what we're doing. And again, if this doesn't proportionally fit, just make sure you go to the Properties menu on the right-hand side. Choose the restrictions to keep the proportions proportionate and choose one of those measurements, make it 12 inches, and your document should fit. If it isn't visible, make sure you select that top left corner for your reference point and set your X and Y values to 0. Now we're going to do the very same thing. We're going to bring in that Jets logo. So I'm going to look for Complex logo, go to the very same place, top left corner, keep that proportionate scaling set, change one measurement to 12 inches, reference point top left corner, 0 and 0. There's my Jets logo. Okay, so to make my Jets logo into my complex shape, I'm going to bring up my image trace menu. So I go to the window menu option, I go down to image trace, bring that up, select my Jets logo, and I'm going to work with a black and white logo preset. It's going to trace my design for me. I'm going to go to tracing results with outlines so I get my blue lines revealed. Under my advanced tab, if it's not visible, you just click on the arrow to bring up your advanced features. Go to ignore white right off the hop so that I don't have any of the white of that Jets logo being traced as part of the design, only the black sections. And then I can play around with things like the noise. I can play around with the pathways. I can play around with the corners just to get the results the way I want them. And when I am happy that this is going to look the way I want, on the right hand side, I'm going to choose expand, and there is my Jets logo. So the next step here is looking at my picture. I want to place it into a little bit more centralized space because I have the stick of the J for Jets covering up Dale Hawerchuk's face. So I'm going to select that image of Dale Hawerchuk and just using my arrow keys, I'm just going to start nudging it over to the left so that the picture is a little bit more centered in the image, but more importantly, I can see a little bit more of Dale Hawerchuk's face inside the Jets logo. And that looks pretty good. Now, here's the interesting part of what we can do here. With the Jets logo, I can turn my fill off, and then I can set my stroke to the thinnest possible and choose a color. And I'm going to choose blue as my color for my stroke. And what I can do when I go to the laser is I can do what's called vector marking. So all of these lines of the Jets logo are just going to be marked on the surface to bring the Jets logo burnt into the surface of my material, and then it'll engrave the picture of Dale Hawerchuk. So I'll get all the detail of the Dale Hawerchuk, but I'm only going to get the lines of the Jets logo engraved in the surface. So it's going to show the logo, but on the logo, I'm going to see more of the picture standing out than I am going to see the logo. Whereas if I kept the fill set on, it would burn all the black of the Jets logo, and I'm going to have a lot of the detail of the picture of Dale Hawerchuk not showing through. So it's a neat feature that you can use to take advantage of this complex shape and do what's called a vector mark to bring just a little bit more to a design than just engraving the surface or cutting it out. Now I do want to cut this sign out, so I am going to need a basic shape as well. I'm going to get my circle tool here, or ellipse tool, and I'm going to set my width and height to 12, which it's already done. I'm going to hit OK. My fill is set to 0. Stroke is set to 0.25, but I want to switch the color from being a blue stroke to being a red stroke so that now I have a different color. And this is going to be important when I take this over to the laser because I want that shape that I'm cutting out to be a different color than the design that I'm just vector marking in. So it's going to vector mark or just slightly burn in the lines of the blue Jets logo here. And then I'm going to use the laser to cut out the red circle so that I have my sign fitting into all of this 12 by 12 circle with all the details revealed. Now, in the previous lesson, when we did a simple design, I had mentioned that the Jets logo that I had used fits perfectly together, so there's no other adjustments. This image doesn't have that. The picture of Dale Hawerchuk, the left edge extends beyond the left edge of the Jets logo and of the circle that I created. Now, what's going to happen is it's going to bump this edge over, and I'm going to end up with my design engraved like this instead. Now, in some situations, even like this one right here, that's not a big deal because I'm only doing the vector marking. But I do also have the option to take this Jets logo and start cutting it out of other materials. And if I cut it out of, say, red acrylic like this, now I have a big line of the hockey stick for the J of Jets coming through Dale Hawerchuk's face. So I want to leave it so that I have that image. Actually, I'm just going to take this right back by doing undo. So I have it exactly where I placed it before. What I want to do is keep it where I have it aligned so that if I did want to cut this out of another type of material, I could and still get the same results, and I have my centering, and I also keep my design that I desire intact. So what I'm going to do is apply a vector mask to my design. So all I'm going to do is go down to my object that is my Dale Hawerchuk picture, select it, go to the object menu, and I'm using, I said vector mask, I'm sorry, a clipping mask. And I'm going to choose clipping mask and make, and then I'm going to drag the left edge of the Dale Hawerchuk image to the left edge of the circle and the Jets logo and release. And now everything matches up. So I have the left edge now matching, the top edge is matching, and it doesn't matter that the right edge doesn't match because it only uses the top and left edges of my design to align my images and my designs together. So as long as they are correct, it doesn't matter. This right edge can be short like it is, it could be extended beyond here on the right than it is on the circle. I could take the bottom edge and extend it down. I could cut it short if I didn't maybe want Dale Hawerchuk to be revealed under Winnipeg. I could crop him like that. If I maybe didn't want his stick to be so far revealed, I could crop it out a little bit more, and that's perfectly fine as well. But as long as my design matches on the left and the top, I could apply my clipping mask to the bottom and the right as well, so everything matches. But once I'm done making my clipping mask work, just click off of my workspace, and now my Jets logo and my Dale Hawerchuk have been clipped and aligned together, ready for engraving. So this would again be an option for me to utilize what's called vector marking, vector cutting, and engraving, or I could simply make this design something that I cut out the Jets logo and just do vector cutting and engraving. All right, folks, it is your turn to do a design of your choosing using these processes and skills to make a complex design. Pitter patter.